Every country hides a story it can't explain, documented, but still unsolved. Wear your earphones. This is volume 001. The first country on the list is France. In the summer of 1764, a 14-year-old girl went out to watch the cattle in rural France. She never came home. What they found was barely human. She was mauled, her throat ripped open, her body torn apart. Locals said it was a beast, but then another victim, then another, then dozens more. Within a few months, the death toll had passed 60, all in the same region, and all in the same terrifying way, brutal, surgical, and merciless. The witnesses agreed. It looked like a giant wolf, but not quite. It was bigger, faster, and it didn't run from humans. It hunted them. Peasants, soldiers, even priests tried to stop it. They set traps, formed hunting parties. Nothing worked. The king himself, Louis XV, got involved. He sent elite hunters to kill the beast. They claimed success. But then, the killings continued. Same bite marks, same decapitations, same fear. Eventually, one local marksman shot and killed a massive creature. It was stuffed, paraded around, celebrated. The beast was dead, until another girl disappeared. Her remains were found near the woods. Nothing had changed. So what was this thing? A mutated wolf? A trained killer? Or something else entirely? One theory says it was a hyena brought from Africa, escaped from a nobleman's exotic collection. Another claims it was a serial killer, using a beast costume to mask human crimes. But here's where it gets chilling. Many of the victims were young girls. Some were reportedly lured into the forest. Their bodies were found, posed, almost ritualistically. That's not animal behavior, that's human. And there were two beasts spotted at once, sometimes more. So maybe it wasn't one monster. Maybe it was a group, a cult, a secret order hiding in the mountains. And the beast, just a mask they wore, something to blame. While the real horror moved in silence, by the time it stopped, over 100 people were dead, and no one was ever caught. Not for the human crimes, not for the manipulation, not for the terror. So here's the question. Was the beast of France ever real? Or was it just a myth to cover something even worse? A monster in a man's skin. The end. Now before we move on to the next country, let's take a short break and listen to this music. Welcome back, listeners. Now let's move on to the next country in our list, Australia. On Valentine's Day, 1900, a group of schoolgirls went on a picnic. They never came back. The place was called Hanging Rock, a towering volcanic formation in Victoria, Australia. Silent, strange, and sacred to Aboriginal tribes. 4 girls and 1 teacher wandered off to explore the rock. Only 1 girl returned, but then she couldn't explain anything. Her dress was torn. She was covered in scratches. She had no memory of where she'd been. The others, gone. No blood, no footprints, not a single clue. Search parties combed the area for weeks. They found nothing. But here's where it gets weirder. Their watches all stopped at exactly the same time. The girl who returned, she was never the same. She would scream in her sleep, wake up crying, and then she vanished too. disappeared from a hospital bed in the middle of the night. No signs of struggle, no broken windows, just gone. Some people think it's fiction because the story became a famous book and film. But here's what they don't tell you. The book was based on rumors, and Hanging Rock has a real history of strange disappearances. Before and after 1900, local Aboriginal stories called the place cursed. They believed spirits guarded it, and that no one should climb it without permission. Multiple hikers in modern times have gone missing for hours, only to be found in bizarre locations, with no memory of what happened. Others claim they lost time. 10 minutes becomes 2 hours. A short climb turns into a night spent in confusion and silence. And sometimes they report hearing, singing, whispers, or footsteps where no one is walking. Some say it's magnetic anomalies. Others say it's a time rift, or a place where reality breaks just for a moment. And those who vanish, they don't die. They slip into somewhere else, a place outside the rules. But then why only some people? Why mostly young women? Was it random? Or were they chosen? Or sacrificed? One local legend says Hanging Rock is a place that feeds on memory. It erases what it doesn't want you to remember, and takes what it wants. So here's the question. What really happened on that picnic? And why is this place still swallowing people? The end. Before we move on to the next country, let's play some jazz music briefly to calm your mind. Now, let's move on to the next country on our list, Russia. In 1954, a Soviet scientist brought a dog's severed head to a demonstration. He placed it on a table, hooked it to tubes, turned on a machine, and then the dog's eyes blinked. Its mouth moved. It tried to bark, but then it did bark. The head was detached. No body. No brains, just a head, conscious for minutes. This wasn't science fiction. This was real. His name was Vladimir Demik. He wasn't a madman. He was respected, and Stalin supported his work. But this was only the beginning, because while the world focused on nuclear bombs, Stalin had other plans. He wanted a new kind of soldier, one that could survive pain, resist emotions, obey without question. A hybrid. The rumors say they tried combining humans and animals, especially dogs. Why? Because dogs are loyal, trainable, and easy to replace. Photos exist of two-headed dogs stitched together, one body, two minds, both alive for days. But then some witnesses said they saw something worse. Human bodies with altered limbs, men with canine skulls, experiments deep in Siberian bunkers, test subjects that were never on any record, and the scientists. They disappeared. Some say it was propaganda, Cold War exaggeration. But why were classified files on these projects only partially released? Why are so many key names still redacted? Demikov's notes reveal he wasn't working alone. He was part of a larger project, one with military ties. And here's the most chilling part. Many of his surgical techniques were later adopted by heart transplant pioneers. The world used methods born from horror. But what happened to the failed prototypes? The mistakes? The hybrids that didn't die right away? Some believe they were dumped in remote forests. Others think they were used, used for reconnaissance, used for experiments, used to prove loyalty by sacrificing identity. And maybe some escaped, because even today, people in rural parts of Russia whisper about creatures in the woods, half-human, wrong eyes, movements that aren't natural. They call them ghosts. Others call them failures. But one thing's clear. Science took a dark turn, and once the door is opened, some things don't stay buried. So here's the question. What kind of soldier was Stalin really trying to build? And what did the world inherit from those experiments? The end. As you anticipated, we will have jazz music again to relax your mind before we move on. It's good that you stay. Now, Germany is the next country on our list. It started with one woman. She walked into the middle of a street and began to dance, alone, silently. No music, no audience, no reason. But then, she didn't stop. She danced through the day, then through the night, and the next morning she was still dancing. Within days, dozens joined her. By the end of the week, it was hundreds. They were sweating, trembling, spinning, like their bodies were puppets, controlled by something they couldn't see, couldn't fight, and couldn't escape. People collapsed from exhaustion. Some broke their bones. Others just stopped breathing mid-dance. Their hearts gave out. But then, it got worse. City officials thought the dancers needed to dance it off, so they built a massive wooden stage, hired musicians, even paid dancers to join in. Yes, they made a death party, but the more music played, the more people died. Imagine watching your neighbor dance until their feet bleed, their body twitching, face locked in a silent scream. What was this? A curse? Demonic possession? A mass hallucination? Some say it was caused by ergot, a toxic mold found in rye bread that can trigger LSD-like effects. Others say it was mass psychosis, from stress, famine, and fear of damnation. But one detail most people don't talk about. This didn't only happen it happened multiple times, in different parts of Europe, across years, across borders. Hundreds of people, in different towns, all danced themselves to death. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern, and patterns are dangerous. The question isn't, why did they dance? The real question is, what if it wasn't them choosing to dance at all? What if it was something older, something buried deep beneath those cobblestone streets, a curse waiting to rise again, or worse? What if it's already happening again, just in a different form, a new kind of possession, a modern trance, where the music isn't real, but the death still is? We laughed at TikTok dances during lockdown. We called them harmless. But deep down, doesn't it feel familiar? You feel the urge. You repeat the motion. You can't stop. Your body moves, even if your soul screams, no. So here's the final question. What made them dance? And what's making you move now? The end. Here's your same jazz music over and over again. Now, let's start with Brazil. 2 men were found lying in a grassy field, dead, wearing lead eye masks. No signs of struggle, no wounds, no blood, just 2 lifeless bodies, dressed in suits, lying side by side with homemade lead masks covering their faces. But then, it gets weirder. Next to them was a notebook. Inside it, 1 line. Be at the agreed place at 4:30. Take capsules after effect. Protect metals. Wait for signal. That's it. No context. No explanation. Just a cryptic to-do list, like they were following instructions from someone or something. Let me break it down for you. This happened in Niterói, Brazil, 1966. The 2 men were TV technicians. Clean records. Normal lives. They told family they were going to buy work equipment. But instead, they traveled hundreds of kilometers, climbed a hill, and died. Autopsy, inconclusive. Toxicology, never completed properly. Why? Because their organs were too decomposed by the time officials checked. Almost like someone wanted the delay. So here's where the theories start. Some said they were involved in a secret society, that the lead masks were meant to shield them from radiation or spiritual forces. Others believed it was a failed alien contact attempt, a ritual gone wrong. Or maybe it went exactly as planned. But then there's the final twist. Months earlier, another man was found dead. Same location, same style, suit, note, strange behavior. No one connected the cases until it was too late. That's 3 men, same mountain, same strange death. Coincidence or invitation? Let's zoom in on that note again. Protect metals. What metals? Why did they need protection? Take capsules. But no capsules were found at the scene. Wait for signal. Signal from who? From where? These weren't uneducated men. They were radio engineers trained to understand waves, frequencies, and signals. Whatever they were doing, they knew exactly what they were trying to reach. And maybe it answered. Think about it. They weren't afraid. They wore suits, packed snacks. This wasn't suicide. This was a mission, and they never came back. So here's the real question. What did they expect to happen? And why were they so sure it would? This mystery has remained unsolved for nearly 60 years, because no one knows what they were waiting for, only that it came. The end. Here is your same repetitive jazz music, again, for a 100 times. Next is the United States. An entire village vanished overnight. No footprints, no fire, no final word. In 1930, a trapper named Joe LaBelle arrived at an Inuit village on Anjikuni Lake. He expected warmth, smoke from chimneys, children running by the shore. Instead, he found silence. Dead silence. The village was gone. Not destroyed, gone. The huts still stood. Meals sat half-eaten. Rifles leaned against doors. A pot of stew still warm over dying coals. But the people, every man, woman, and child, had vanished. Joe ran to the nearest telegraph station. It took hours, and when police arrived, they were just as stunned. No signs of struggle, no blood, no body. But one thing chilled them to the bone. The village graveyard had been dug up, every grave empty. Even the stones had been carefully stacked to the side. Who unburied the dead, and why? Some thought it was disease. But why would sick people dig up graves before vanishing? Others whispered about starvation. But there was food, even freshly caught fish, still frozen. Then someone noticed the sled dogs, all dead, still tied to posts, starved, as if no one had fed them for days. If the villagers left, why would they leave behind their only means of escape? That's when the lights appeared. Multiple witnesses, trappers, police, and even nearby villagers reported strange lights in the sky, blue, silent, drifting like stars that forgot how to twinkle. They watched them hover above the lake, and then vanish. And here's the strangest part. There's no official explanation, no trace of where the villagers went, no weather event, no natural disaster, no tribal migration pattern, just emptiness. Where a village used to be. To this day, official records are vague. Some say the story was exaggerated, that it was just another tall tale from the frozen north. But Joe LaBelle was real. His report is archived. And those investigators, they never filed a follow-up, almost like they stopped looking, or were told to. So here's the question. What makes an entire village vanish overnight? And who, or what, needs to steal the dead, too? The end. Let's hear the jazz music again for a 1,000 times. Now, let's move on for the last country on our list, India. High in the Indian Himalayas, there's a frozen lake that only reveals its secret when the snow melts. Rupkund Lake, nicknamed by locals as the Lake of Skeletons. Why? Because when the ice thaws, you see bones, hundreds of them, skulls, ribs, legs, scattered like a forgotten battlefield. But no war ever happened there. But then, scientists began digging deeper, and the truth, it only got darker. First, they dated the bones. Turns out, they weren't all from the same time. Some skeletons were from the 800s, others from the 1800s, centuries apart, but all died the same way. Blunt force trauma. To the head, no weapons, no battle wounds, just skulls, shattered. It was like something from the sky had attacked them. And that's when a theory emerged. A freak hailstorm, one so violent it rained death. Giant balls of ice hitting human skulls with fatal force. No cover, no escape. They didn't stand a chance. But then, another twist. DNA analysis revealed something strange. The skeletons didn't belong to one group. They came from two distinct populations. One matched locals, the other, a group genetically linked to the Mediterranean. What were people from Greece doing 5,000 meters up a remote Himalayan trail, centuries before modern travel? No one knows. And we're not just talking about a few explorers. We're talking about dozens of people from a faraway continent who died alongside Indian pilgrims at the same mysterious lake in the same brutal way, and they didn't die at the same time. They came in waves, almost as if Rupkund was calling them. But why? Why do strangers from different lands, in different centuries, all end up dead in the exact same place, beneath a glacier, with crushed skulls? Was it a cursed path, a failed ritual, or something older than language itself? Some locals believe Rupkund was once the domain of a wrathful goddess, that the travelers were punished for defiling sacred ground. Others say there's something buried beneath the lake, something that protects itself. Whatever the reason, Rupkund doesn't just kill, it waits, and when it decides the time is right, it chooses its next visitors. So here's the question: what connects those people? And why is Rupkund still hiding the full story? The end. You've just heard what history tried to forget. But this was only volume 001. There are more stories, stranger ones. Subscribe for volume 002. Transmission complete. This is the Forgotten Historian. Signing off.